The 1980s were about far more than loud hairstyles, glowing neon signs, and packed arcade halls. It was the decade when Hollywood boldly reached for the impossible. Filmmakers stared into the unknown and imagined futures filled with thinking machines, digital worlds, flying vehicles, and gigantic cities that felt almost alive. For audiences at the time, these ideas seemed like pure fantasy. Yet today, many of those imagined futures are part of everyday life. Artificial intelligence no longer simply responds to questions. It creates stories, paints images, and holds conversations that feel remarkably human. Electric cars move quietly along highways, guided by software capable of making split-second decisions with extraordinary accuracy. Entire digital universes now exist inside virtual reality headsets where people work, socialize, and even build relationships. In the 1980s, this was science fiction. Now it is our daily commute, our evening entertainment, and in many ways, our entire lifestyle. Most people credit Blade Runner or Back to the Future Part 2 for predicting this world. But beneath those pop culture giants are films that quietly faded from memory, underrated classics and cult discoveries that forecast the future with surprising accuracy. Their visions of artificial intelligence, surveillance, virtual reality, and bioengineering feel so precise that it almost seems as if their creators had glimpsed the decades ahead. This is Vintverse, where nostalgia meets prophecy. And today we are exploring 10 forgotten science fiction films from the 1980s that didn't merely imagine tomorrow. They helped shape it. Is Brazil, 1985. Directed by Terry Gilliam, the film is less a conventional story and more a surreal nightmare built from tangled pipes, flickering screens, and endless bureaucracy. It presents a future where technology is everywhere, yet freedom is almost non-existent. The story follows Sam Lowry, a low-level government employee buried under mountains of paperwork and malfunctioning machines, desperately chasing a mysterious woman from his dreams. The world around him feels suffocating, controlled by faceless corporations and bloated government departments that no longer remember why they exist. When the film was first released, audiences laughed uneasily at its absurdity. Endless forms, broken systems, and surveillance cameras on every corner. Watching it today feels disturbingly familiar. Gilliam's chaotic future anticipated the digital bureaucracy that now governs daily life. The film's endless ducts and wires mirror modern data centers and cloud networks that quietly run our routines. Its most unsettling prediction is how casually constant surveillance is accepted. In the film, cameras are simply part of life. Today, we willingly carry tracking devices in our pockets. Social credit programs in some regions, mass data collection, and widespread facial recognition systems make the film's nightmare feel uncomfortably close. Even its retro-futuristic style, bulky screens, cramped cubicles, and hybrid analog-digital interfaces, still looks relevant. Many cyberpunk designers and technology startups openly draw inspiration from its visual language. In an era where voice assistants misunderstand requests and self-checkout systems fail regularly, the satire feels sharper than ever. Technology is not only everywhere, it is flawed, indifferent, and shaped by human mistakes. Once considered surreal, Brazil now feels more like a warning that arrived far too early. Is Back to the Future Part 2, 1989. Few sequels managed to stand beside their originals, yet this film pushed Marty McFly into a future that still fascinates viewers. The year was 2015, and the vision included flying cars, hoverboards, self-tying shoes, and a dramatically transformed Hill Valley skyline. At the time, the ideas felt playful and exaggerated. But behind the jokes were predictions that turned out to be surprisingly accurate. Video calling, for example, once seemed like pure fantasy. Today, services such as Zoom, FaceTime, and Teams are everyday tools. The film also anticipated a world surrounded by screens, wearable devices, multi-display homes, and constant digital media. Marty's future living room, filled with multiple programs playing at once, now resembles modern households juggling televisions, tablets, smartphones, and VR headsets. Smart home technology in the film, voice control devices, biometric security, and targeted advertising, now exists through ecosystems from Amazon, Google, and Apple. Fingerprint locks have become routine on phones and doors. And while hoverboards still don't truly float, experimental projects from companies such as Lexus and Hendo Hover, along with the global rise of electric scooters, show how close the idea came. More impressive than the technology itself was the film's understanding of human behavior. A society glued to screens, obsessed with convenience, and deeply nostalgic for its own past. In that sense, it predicted not just devices but how people would live with them. Is Blade Runner 1982. Directed by Ridley Scott, the film reshaped the visual language of science fiction and defined what cyberpunk would become. Its story of bioengineered replicants, nearly indistinguishable from humans, once felt distant and speculative. Today it feels uncomfortably close. At its heart is a question society now faces directly. What happens when machines become convincingly human? Replicants were created to serve, yet they sought freedom and identity. Modern artificial intelligence systems can compose music, replicate voices, and simulate emotional expression. Engineers continue to develop lifelike robotic faces, artificial skin, and learning systems that closely model human behavior. The gap between Deckard's world and today's robotics, from companies such as Hanson Robotics and Tesla, now seems remarkably small. The film also anticipated the rise of massive neon cities and omnipresent surveillance. Its Los Angeles skyline, filled with glowing advertisements and aerial traffic, now feels familiar when compared to modern cityscapes in Tokyo, Shanghai, and Dubai. Surveillance cameras, once a paranoid fantasy, are now standard infrastructure in most major cities, tracking faces, vehicles, and movements. More than predicting gadgets, the film captured humanity's uneasy dependence on technology, an anxiety that remains just as powerful today. Is Tron 1982. When it was released, critics viewed it as a visually impressive but confusing experiment. The idea of a person being pulled into a computer system and forced to survive inside a glowing digital arena felt too strange for mainstream audiences. Today it seems visionary. The film imagined a fully immersive digital world long before virtual reality headsets existed. Inside its computer universe, software programs had personalities, cyberspace felt physical, and identity was divided between real and digital selves. This is now commonly described as the metaverse. From virtual environments created by Meta to platforms such as Roblox and Fortnite, modern digital worlds echo the concepts Tron introduced decades ago. The film also hinted at how digital avatars would mirror their creators, foreshadowing today's social media identities and AI companions. Its glowing grid design influenced everything from the visual style of Daft Punk to contemporary game interfaces and software design. Many technology innovators still cite the film as a creative inspiration for how digital environments should look and feel. Is The Last Starfighter 1984. During the mid-1980s, arcade culture was booming with games such as Pac-Man, Space Invaders, and Donkey Kong. Gaming was seen as harmless fun, not serious training. This film proposed a wildly imaginative idea. What if video games were secretly preparing players for real combat? The story centers on Alex Rogan, a teenager trapped in a quiet trailer park who becomes a champion on a mysterious arcade machine, only to learn it was a recruitment test for an alien defense force. Overnight, he is taken from casual gaming into an actual interstellar war. What once felt like pure fantasy now closely resembles reality. Modern armed forces increasingly rely on gaming technology and virtual reality simulations for recruitment and training. The United States Army even operates esports programs, and drone pilots guide real-world weapons through control systems that look strikingly similar to professional gaming setups. Flight simulators and VR environments have turned a childhood pastime into a serious tool for modern warfare. Once limited to old-school arcades, video games have evolved into experiences that now look almost identical to professional military simulation systems. Even NASA relies on game-based training to prepare astronauts for future missions to the Moon and Mars. Back in 1984, when Alex Rogan climbed into a starfighter cockpit on screen, audiences were stunned by the idea. Today, millions of players do something very similar every night, except their battlefield is Fortnite and their weapons are digital drones. The film's concept was not unrealistic at all. It was simply ahead of its time. Is Looker, 1981. Looker may be one of the most disturbingly accurate science fiction films of the 1980s, not because of aliens or spaceships, but because of something far more unsettling: advertising. Written and directed by Michael Crichton, the film follows fashion models who undergo computerized body scans so that flawless digital versions of themselves can appear in commercials without the real people ever stepping in front of a camera. Today, AI-generated influencers and deepfake performers dominate social media, and companies such as MetaHuman and Synthesia, along with virtual celebrities like Lil Miquela, reflect exactly what the film imagined. Looker also anticipated targeted advertising and subliminal persuasion. In the story, commercials use flashing light patterns to subtly influence viewers, closely resembling today's micro-targeting algorithms that study behavior, predict interests, and shape attention at a subconscious level. The film even imagined data-driven facial perfection, strikingly similar to modern beauty filters and face enhancement systems used across social platforms. Most unsettling of all, Looker foresaw the ethical questions we are dealing with right now. Who owns your identity once your face and body are digitized? At a time when Hollywood actors strike over AI scans of their appearances and deepfakes blur the line between truth and fiction, Crichton's vision feels less like science fiction and more like a warning that went ignored. Is Max Headroom, 20 minutes into the future? Long before Black Mirror explored algorithm-driven nightmares, Max Headroom did it first. Released in 1985, this television movie introduced one of the earliest AI television personalities, a glitching, stuttering digital host named Max Headroom who exists only on a screen. On the surface, Max seemed like a humorous parody of television culture, but underneath the satire was something remarkably prophetic. The story imagined a world ruled by non-stop news cycles, corporate-controlled media, and artificially generated personalities, ideas that now define modern digital culture. The central anxiety of the series is media manipulation. In Max's world, giant corporations flood audiences with endless content, erasing the boundary between truth and entertainment. What once appeared as a comedic, malfunctioning AI presenter now resembles today's synthetic anchors and digital news hosts, already being used in countries such as China and South Korea. The character's name itself comes from the phrase maximum headroom, seen on a warning sign at the start of the story. It represents a limit, a ceiling. Today we are asking the same question. What is the maximum headroom for artificial intelligence in our lives? How far will we allow synthetic personalities to enter entertainment, education, politics, and even personal relationships? Is Dune, 1984. Far out in space lies Arrakis, a harsh desert world burned by twin suns, battered by endless winds, and home to the most valuable substance in the universe, the spice melange. This resource grants visions, enables interstellar travel, and extends human life, making it worth killing for. David Lynch's adaptation of Frank Herbert's 1965 novel reached cinemas in 1984, and became one of the strangest and most ambitious science fiction films ever made. The film feels overwhelming and chaotic, filled with whispered conspiracies, grotesque villains, and a messianic figure destined to rise from the sand. At the time, critics struggled to understand it, but history has shown that Dune was not only ahead of its era, it was anticipating ours. Beneath its alien setting, our modern world is clearly reflected. Powerful houses fight over spice in the same way nations compete today for oil, lithium, and data, the true lifeblood of modern economies and technology. Arrakis' brutal environment mirrors today's climate fears, water shortages, ecological collapse, and the struggle to survive on a damaged planet. The most disturbing prediction in Herbert's universe is the Butlerian Jihad, humanity's ancient war against thinking machines. Artificial intelligence is permanently banned and replaced by highly trained human mentats, who function like computers. As we enter our own AI-driven future, the warning feels especially relevant. Will humanity live alongside intelligent machines, or will it eventually rebel against them? Is Enemy Mine, 1985. On the surface, It appears to be a straightforward survival story about two enemies stranded on a dangerous planet and forced to cooperate. But beneath the alien landscapes and dramatic aerial combat lies a surprisingly forward-looking vision of cross-species cooperation and, by extension, the future relationship between humans and intelligent machines. The film places a human pilot together with an alien warrior from an opposing race. Cut off from their armies and political loyalties, they gradually discover mutual respect and even friendship. In 1985, the story served as a message about war and peace. Today, as artificial intelligence becomes deeply embedded in everyday life, from medical diagnostics to autonomous weapons, the real question is no longer whether humans will work alongside intelligent systems, but how that coexistence will function. Enemy Mine foreshadows this uneasy partnership, highlighting the balance between mistrust and reliance. In the present day, humans already collaborate with AI in fields ranging from surgical robotics to space exploration. Future missions to Mars will depend heavily on AI-driven rovers and autonomous navigation systems, reflecting the teamwork the film dramatized decades ago. The story's focus on cultural misunderstanding also feels strikingly modern. The alien's language, traditions, and values force the human character to confront his own prejudice, a theme echoed today in debates about AI alignment and ethics. Can machines truly understand human values? And if they cannot, what happens when misunderstandings become dangerous? Is Cherry 2000, 1987. In a decade filled with legendary science fiction blockbusters, this film barely registered at the box office. Yet years later, it feels uncannily relevant, which is exactly why it deserves the top spot, even if that choice provokes disagreement. The story follows Sam Treadwell in a post-apocalyptic world where human relationships have deteriorated, intimacy is contractual, and companionship often comes in the form of customized android partners. When his cherished Cherry 2000 unit breaks down, Sam travels into the wasteland in search of a replacement, a journey that unintentionally exposes society's deep dependence on artificial relationships. The parallels to today are difficult to ignore. The rise of AI companions, virtual partners, and synthetic intimacy technology is one of the fastest-growing and most controversial sectors in modern tech. Companies already market AI girlfriends, virtual reality relationships, and lifelike companion robots, while online communities form around digital partners such as Replica. What makes Cherry 2000 so unsettling is not simply that it predicted this trend, but that it anticipated the emotional consequences. In the film's world, genuine human connection feels outdated. Love is reduced to contracts and mechanical perfection. It asks a question we still struggle to answer. If technology can satisfy every desire, will people still need one another? Most film fans would never rank Cherry 2000 above Blade Runner or Back to the Future, but its purpose is not comfort. It is provocation. It sparks debate and even discomfort while drawing attention to a forgotten 1980s science fiction film that foresaw one of today's most sensitive technological revolutions. These overlooked movies, dismissed in their own time, predicted AI companions, virtual worlds, flying cars, biometric security, and the very algorithms that now shape modern life. As we admire their foresight, we are left wondering what today's filmmakers are quietly predicting about our future. Will the movies of 2025 feel just as eerily accurate decades from now? This is Vintverse, where yesterday's visions meet today's reality. If you enjoyed this journey through forgotten science fiction, be sure to subscribe for more untold stories from film history, and tell us in the comments which 1980s movie prediction you think came true the most.